So let's start. So guys, we are talking about basically, we're talking about the chapter which is called exchange rate. What is exchange rate? We say an exchange rate is basically the value of one currency, the value of one currency expressed in terms of another currency. So for example, I can say £1 is equal to $2 could be the value of pound expressed in terms of dollars. Now, before we talk about more about this, that like if I say £1 was £1 is equal to $2. So if exchange rate right now is this one, basic £1 is equal to $2, and let's say now it becomes £1 is equal to $4. What does that mean? This means basically, if I want to sort of say this, that if the exchange rate has gone from £1 is equal to $2 to £1 is equal to $4, I will say this, that my pound is now, for every pound I used to get $2 worth of good. For now, for every pound I am getting $4 worth of good. So I'll say my pound has become stronger or appreciated. So this is the language we use. For example, similarly, if this £1 is equal to $2, somehow becomes £1 is equal to, for example, $1. This basically means that the pound has become weaker, or another way we say is that it has depreciated. Now, what do we mean by this? So for example, guys, let's say if I want to buy if I'm living in the UK, guys, and let's say I have £20. Okay, if I have £20, and let's say my exchange rate currently is, for example, like this one. Okay, and if somebody asks me, if you have £20, how many what's the value of goods that you can buy from the US? And the answer would be £20 into $2. This means I can buy $40 worth of goods. Make sense? So the way we're going to use this is that, or for example, if somebody says the good is for $80 in the US, if somebody in the UK wants to buy this good, how many pounds do you think he requires to buy $80 worth of good? And the answer will be, well, $80, uh, £1 is equal to $2. So $80 would mean you require, anyone can tell me the answer? How many dollars do you require to undertake 80? How many pounds do you require to undertake $80 worth of transaction? Exactly. So since £1 is equal to $2, you require £40 to undertake $80 worth of goods. So exchange rate basically helps us to express one currency in the form of another. And first thing is that exchange rate can go up or down. And if exchange rate is going up, this means pound, for every pound you get $2 previously. Now for every pound you can get more. This means your pound has become stronger. By the way, if pound has become stronger, I can also say this, that dollar has become, if pound becomes stronger, dollar has become weaker. Why? Because I want to explain this concept as well, because it's important to understand that for every pound, if you were getting $4 worth of good, right? For every pound you get $4 worth of good. You can also see this, that in this scenario where for every pound you used to get $2 worth of good, now you're getting $4 worth of good, while pound is becoming stronger. But think about from somebody who's buying a US, who's sitting in the US and buying UK goods. He would be like, you know what? If previously for every £1 worth of good I was paying $2, now for every £1 worth of good I'm giving $4. I have to give more to buy £1 worth of good. So well, while pound has become stronger, dollar has become weaker. And this has an implications, because when, let's say, your exchange rate has moved from, okay, I'm going to take the same, the exchange rate was £1 is equal to $2, has become £1 is equal to $4. What does that imply? We say the exchange rate for pound UK has become stronger. Now this also means Another important thing, because your exchange rate is going up, your exchange rate is becoming stronger. This also means that UK goods, UK goods, for example, if there was a good in UK which was for £20, think of this way, guys. If UK good was for £20, right? What with this new exchange rate, what will happen to this good? Well, previously, for every pound, if you were paying $2, something which was for £20, you will pay $40. But now, when the exchange rate has gone, so this price of exports will be, for example, price of exports will be $40. But now, when your exchange rate has gone to £1 is equal to $4, now you have to pay px dash 4 times 20, which means $80. Which means one can argue this, that when the exchange rate goes up, I wrote this here, when the exchange rate goes up, exports will become expensive. For the US consumers, the exports will become expensive and automatically imports will become cheaper. Why will imports become cheaper? Think of it this way, guys. If somebody who was buying a $20 worth of good, let's say, from a UK national was buying $20 worth of good, he used to pay, with this exchange rate, he used to pay £10. Now, with this exchange rate, he will pay 20 divided by 4 or only £5. So price of imports was previously £10 for a $20 worth of good. Now that price of import will become £5. So in other words, what we say is this, that when the exchange rate goes up, exports become expensive and imports become cheaper. So that's an important concept that I want to also explain in terms of that. That if your pound becomes stronger, like in this case, our pound was becoming stronger uh, for UK, their exports will become expensive and their imports will become sort of cheaper, and that's something which we want to use for our later discussion. Um, does that make sense, guys? Is there any question before we move on? Do we get this idea of a currency becoming stronger versus weaker? So when a country becomes stronger against another currency, let's say pound becomes stronger against dollar, that means dollar becomes weaker automatically. If pound becomes stronger, dollar becomes weaker, which means if pound becomes stronger, their exports will become expensive and imports will become cheaper. Okay, this is both good news and bad news. We're going to look at it in a little while, but that's the first thing. So what is exchange rate? Exchange rate is the value of one currency expressed in the form of another currency. So that's one thing we need to understand. Okay, now before we move on, we're going to talk about a couple of things. um, so when you look at exchange rate, guys, when we look at exchange rate, there are three exchange rate systems that are out there. Okay, there are three exchange rate systems. One is what we call a floating exchange rate system. Another one is what we call a fixed exchange rate system. And the last one is what we call a managed float exchange rate system. So floating, fixed, and managed. And by the way, floating is where what we say is basically the one that I'm going to discuss today, where market forces of demand and supply determines the value of the currency. So that's one thing which you need to understand. Value of the currency. While fixed exchange is one where the government decides the exchange rate, and we'll say managed float exchange rate, also called sometimes dirty float, is where the government basically intervenes, or government decides to intervene only when the fluctuation is above a certain threshold. So the government decides a threshold where they do not intervene, but if it goes beyond that threshold, then they will only intervene. Okay, I should say when the fluctuation is beyond a certain, beyond could be basically, by the way, above or below, so beyond a certain threshold. So we're going to look at these three things in a lot more detail, but I just wanted to sort of quickly put it out there. So today's discussion will be more about floating exchange rate, and today and tomorrow, in fact, and then we'll move on to fixed and the managed float. Before we move on, I just want to ask you guys if there's any question regarding this discussion so far. Am I good to move on? If we are good to move on, that's awesome. Let me know. Are we happy to move on? Okay, great. Thank you very much, guys. So let's move on to now the floating exchange rate. We say in a floating exchange rate, guys, the value of the currency is basically determined by the market forces of demand and supply. So exchange rate regime where the value of the currency is allowed to be determined solely by the market forces of demand and supply, and there is no government intervention to influence. So when you look at a floating exchange rate, there is no government intervention. That's something which we need to understand. There is no government intervention, and basically demand and supply. Let me write this: demand and supply of the currency determines the exchange rate. Okay, and I want to talk about this demand and supply of the currency determines the exchange rate in 1 minute, but this is basically where the government is not intervening. So let's start off by looking at first what do we mean by the demand for the currency. So for our discussion, guys, we will look at pound. So we look at demand, we will look at demand and supply of pounds. Okay, and I'm going to first start off with demand for pounds. So demand for pounds. When you look at demand for pounds, we say this that when you make a demand curve for pounds, I'm going to express, and I want you guys to let's draw it together. When you look at the demand for pounds curve, my x-axis I have quantity of pounds, okay, and on my y-axis I have US value of pounds. So on my x-axis, I have quantity of pounds. On my y-axis, I have US value of pounds. And when you look at this currency, you are looking at the demand curve to be downward sloping. Okay. Now, what do we mean by this? What we mean by this is this, that, for example, um, if I'm writing a particular exchange rate, and I'm going to explain this in detail in 1 minute. Let's say E naught. I can say E naught is like £1 is equal to $4. And I say, and let's say if it goes to, for example, from point A to point B, let's say it goes to E1. This means basically exchange rate is going down. So I'm expressing right now, I'm looking at from pound perspective, this exchange rate is going down. This means that pound is becoming weaker. And that basically means £1 is equal to $2, for example. So I'm saying this that the demand for pounds, let me write this, the demand for pounds is basically downward sloping. That's what the first thing you can see from the diagram, it's downward sloping. And I'm also saying this that when the exchange rate goes down, pound becomes weaker, exchange rate goes down, the quantity of pounds demanded is going up. So that's what I want to explain. Before I move on to explain this idea in much more detail, I want you guys to draw this if you can as we go along, and ask me any question also, so that we have a clarity in this. And if you're good to move on, you can tell me also we're good to move on. So, like a few seconds break, just to copy and ask if there is need to be any question.
So yes.
Any questions, guys? Are we going to move on? Great. Okay. So, guys, what is happening is also one thing to understand, which is that um, that pound is becoming for example, weaker. Now, when pound becomes weaker, we've just talked about this in a little while ago. When pounds become weaker, so pound falls, pound becomes weaker. There is also a thing that is happening here. When the pound is becoming weaker, your exchange rate is going down. Okay, and then when exchange rate goes down, we knew this. We just discussed this, that exports will become cheaper. Isn't that true? Exports will become cheaper because your exchange rate is going down. Because we just talked about it a few minutes ago, that like, if somebody was sort of paying $4 to buy £1 worth of good, now he's going to pay $2 to buy £1 worth of goods, which means he's paying less. So the first question we need to ask is that who is demanding pound? Right? Let me write this. Who is demanding pounds? And the answer is whoever is living abroad, not in the UK, but living abroad and wanting to buy UK goods. So if you demand, if you demand UK goods, you will be buying pounds. Or anyone who's buying exports, so basically anyone who's buying exports from UK, which is demanding UK goods, or anyone who is, like traveling to UK. Like, for example, if I want to go to UK, for example, this summer, I shouldn't be because of coronavirus, but let's say if I want to, then I will be basically buying pounds or demanding pounds. So anyone who's traveling to UK, anyone who's buying UK goods and services will be demanding pounds. So that basically means that when the exchange rate is going down, guys, if the exchange rate is falling, exchange rate becomes weaker and exports becomes cheaper. If exports become cheaper, people will buy people will buy more of UK goods. And when people buy more of UK goods because exchange rate is becoming cheaper, one could argue this, the quantity of UK pounds will will increase. And that's why quantity goes from Q naught to Q1. So why is my demand for pounds downward sloping? Because when the exchange rate goes down, exports become cheaper, and foreigners will be demanding more of a currency. Remember, the demand for pounds we normally say comes from exports, exports, right? So when the demand for pounds is coming from exports, this means that when the pound becomes cheaper, pound quantity of pound goes down, pound's value goes down, for example, from E0 to E1. Why does the value go down? We'll talk about this later. But what if the value goes down? Pound becomes weaker, which means basically exchange rate goes down, exports become cheaper, and that would mean the quantity of pounds demanded, uh, so quantity of pounds, I should say, quantity of pounds demanded will increase, and that basically results in your your movement from point A to point B. So that's exactly what we wrote here. that the pound is demanded when foreign residents, let me just zoom this here, guys. The pound is demanded, the pound is demanded when foreign residents from US consumers want to undertake transactions in the UK. So, for example, US consumers want to undertake transactions in the UK, they will be demanding pounds. Demand for pounds in the foreign exchange market is, we say, is down sloping. This is because when the price of pounds in terms of dollar is high, then UK goods will be expensive to the US consumers, as they have to pay more, as they have to pay more dollars to gain pounds. As a result, the demand for UK pounds will be low, and this will mean fewer pounds will be demanded. Similarly, this is what we said. At E1, UK goods will become cheaper to the US consumers as they have to pay less pounds to gain dollars. As a result, the demand for UK goods will be high, and this means higher pounds will be demanded. So when your exchange rate goes down, guys, when your exchange rate goes down, your exports become cheaper and the quantity of your currency demanded will go up. Then that explains why the demand for pounds is downward sloping. Now we move on to the supply of pounds. Okay, so what about supply of pounds? I'm going to move on to the next page. When you look at supply of pound curve is upward sloping like this one. So let me explain this in separately. So let's look at supply of pounds. We say supply of pounds is basically coming from imports. So while exports is your demand for pounds, your imports is your supply of pounds. And I want to explain this concept, why exports is your demand for pounds and imports is supply of pounds. This is an important question to important sort of concept to remember. But let's draw the supply of pounds quickly. On my x-axis, I'm going to write quantity of pounds. And my y-axis, I'm going to write US value of pounds. I'm expressing pounds per dollar, pounds in terms of dollar, okay? And I'm saying this supply of pound curve is upward sloping like this one, okay? Which means if this is 1 pound is equal to $2, so this is my exchange rate E naught, let's call it E naught. And if exchange rate goes from E naught to E1, exchange rate goes up from 1 pound is equal to $4, you will see the supply of pounds to go up. More of the quantity supplied will happen uh, when this will when the exchange rate goes up. Do we have a sound issue? Anyone? Sorry, Haris just wrote there was a disruption in my voice, but are we good now? Is there uh, any problems with the sound quality? Okay, maybe some internet issue. So guys, what happens here is this, that let's say exchange rate goes from E0 to E1. Okay, now if I'm moving from A to B, okay, so what happens when the exchange rate goes up? When the exchange rate goes up from E0 to E1, let me write this, from E0 to E1, one could argue this, that the pound is becoming stronger. Okay, now look at this idea, guys. If pound is becoming stronger, exchange rate goes up. Can I say this? When the exchange rate goes up, imports become cheaper. Why? Because look at this, guys. If I'm buying UK goods, I'm sorry, if I'm buying US goods, previously for every pound I used to get $2 worth of goods. Now for every pound I get $4 worth of goods. I am getting more from my pound when the exchange rate goes from E0 to E1. So when the exchange rate goes up, imports become cheaper. And when imports become cheaper, and one could argue this, that people or UK residents will buy more of US goods. Let's say if they are buying US goods, why? Because uh, now the pound can buy them, or not $2 worth of good, but the pound can buy them more, $4 worth of good, and that would mean basically they will be supplying more of pounds to obtain dollars to undertake transactions, and that means that the quantity of pounds supplied will go up. So basically, what we are arguing is that, let's say if I'm living in the UK and I want to go to the US, or I want to buy US goods, what I will do is that I will take my pounds to the money market, to the exchange rate dealer, foreign currency market dealer. I'll say, hey, these are my pounds. Can you convert them into dollars? I will supply my pounds to obtain dollars, right? If I supply my pounds to obtain dollars, basically that basically will result in me to buy the foreign good. So if I'm buying, if I'm buying, guys, if I'm buying foreign goods, then I need to supply my currency. I want to sort of supply my currency to obtain dollars to buy that good. So when the exchange rate goes up, I'll say that imports are becoming cheaper, and these imports are becoming cheaper, which mean I am going to buy more of the US goods. So UK residents will buy more of US goods because pound is becoming stronger, and then they will be basically supplying more. The quantity of pounds supplied will go up because they will be undertaking more transactions, which would mean quantity of pounds supplied goes up. So you supply your currency to buy foreign goods, okay? And foreigners demand your currency to buy your goods. So supply comes from imports. Whenever I'm buying foreign goods, I'm buying foreign cars, I'm undertaking foreign currency, foreign transactions, I'm investing abroad. All of this would mean I will be supplying my pounds to obtain dollars to undertake their transactions. So when the exchange rate goes up, imports become cheaper. And when imports become cheaper, UK residents will buy more of the US goods. And that's basically where the quantity of pounds supplied will go up, leading to an upward sloping supply curve. Do you guys get that? Does that make sense? Because if that is true, then I can now look at what we call equilibrium in the foreign exchange market. If you look at equilibrium in the foreign exchange market, the equilibrium in the foreign exchange market is like this. You have your demand and supply of the currency. Demand curve is downward sloping. By the way, can you make it linear? And the answer is yes, we can make it linear too. So I can make a linear graph as well. There's no harm in making a linear graph. So somebody was asking me, is it okay to make a linear graph? And the answer is yes, you can make a linear graph. There's no issue whatsoever. Okay, I'm making a linear just for reference right now. Okay, this is, you can call this pound per dollar or US value of pound. On my y-axis, I'm going to call US value of pounds. That's what I write normally. You can write pound per dollar and so on. And let's say this is your quantity of pounds. So the way the demand and supply meet, you'll get your equilibrium. And for example, this is 1 pound is equal to $2, right? Let's say this is the exchange rate right now. So the value of the currency is determined by the market forces demand supply, which is something, one of the factors. We'll discuss it in a little while. So what will be the further effect if a currency is stronger and we're importing a lower price? If a strong currency is stronger, we're importing a lower price. We're just saying that uh, if your currencies become stronger and I'm importing, then this is how I'm showing it right now. I'm just showing it through a movement. Okay. Does that make sense? So Haris, now the question we need to ask us is that let's look, once we have the diagram ready, we can look at various scenarios of how we can change this to change exchange rate. Now, let's say I'm going to ask you guys a question and you will tell me what will happen to the equilibrium. Okay, so this will be, let's say um, Pakistan is hosting PSL, and a lot of foreigners are coming to watch let's look at UK example. It's better to look at UK example. Let's say UK is hosting, let's say, a cricket World Cup, and a lot of people are coming to the UK to watch that World Cup. What will happen to the demand and supply of currency? If you can tell me, guys, if UK is hosting, if UK is hosting exactly, Amar, you're right. If UK is hosting a World Cup, a lot of people will be demanding pounds. Why? Because they will be like buying pounds to spend that in the US, and the exchange rate will go up. Okay, so that can happen. You guys agree with me? So demand will go to the right, and basically exchange rate will appreciate. So if I want to write this, I want to write this like this. So I will say this. Say UK hosts World Cup. What will happen? And the answer is that demand for pounds will go up, causing exchange rate to go up. Okay, let's do one more example. Number two. Are we happy with this first one? Yeah, Haris, let's keep it simple. Don't think about others. Just think about your stuff. Okay, Haris, to make it simple, let's just look at our UK. Let's not look at others. But you're right. What you're saying is right. But to simplify, because otherwise there will be too much confusion. Just look at from UK perspective. What happens to others happens to others. Let's not get into it. Let's look at another scenario, guys. What if I tell you this UK imports, like masks, more masks due to corona. Okay, coronavirus. I should write coronavirus. What do you guys think? What will happen? Anyone who can tell me what will happen if UK is importing more masks due to coronavirus? Anyone can tell me that? Well, the answer to this one is exactly, Munazza is right. And somebody else was also right. Harris was also right. The supply of pounds should go up. Why? Because now I am saying this, that irrespective of the exchange rate, I want more mass to be imported. To import more mass, I will supply my pounds, obtain, let's say, dollars, and buy the mass from the US. So supply of pounds will go up, and therefore exchange rate will go down. So if this is the case, what we'll say is that when a country is importing more, then the supply of pounds will go up, causing the exchange rate to fall. Do you guys get that? Does that make sense? So we will have a diagram like this one. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is this, that, and this is basically a lot of discussion will happen, but basically, if UK is importing more, supply of pounds increase and exchange rate will fall. UK is exporting more, demand will go up and exchange rate will go up. Make sense? So it's the market forces, demand and supply, that will basically determine. Now I want to show you this, guys. It's a very good sort of list. Sources of demand. What can make the demand to go up or down, or change of demand? What can make the demand to change? And the answer could be, if foreign consumers demand UK goods and services, then that will mean the demand will go up. Foreign tourists to UK, if more foreign tourists are coming to UK, demand will go up. If foreigners are investing more in the UK, demand will go up. Okay. Now, if you're a guy who buys pound and then sell it later, who's a speculator? A speculator is somebody who buys low and sells high. Okay, you're a money market speculator. If you're a speculator who thinks pound will appreciate in the future, you are somebody who feels that tomorrow the pound value will go up further. What will you do? You will buy more pounds. Why? Because you buy more to sell later. Okay, when will you sell? When the price actually goes up. So if you believe that the price will, guys, if you believe that the price will rise in the future, you buy more to sell later, which would mean demand will go up. Basically, if the speculator is thinking that the pound will rise in the future. Similarly, other governments were demanding UK pound for foreign reserves. Let's say you remember we had reserves in our balance of payment account. Your BOP had a reserve. If foreign governments want to build their reserves with pound, they will be demanding more of currency. Demand will go up. So various sources of demand can be A, exports, B, services, C, investment, D, people buying your currency because they feel that it will appreciate in the future, and D and E, when other governments are also wanting to buy your currency. So there could be various sources of demand for pounds. Various sources of supply of pounds could be also there. For example, UK, for example, UK residents purchase of foreign goods. If UK residents are buying more of foreign goods, they will supply, the supply will increase. Make sense? Due to investment, once supply go up, Harris, due to investment of Habib, what you saying? Due to investment, once supply go up? No, yeah, I'm saying this. Foreigners are investing in the UK. It's not UK is investing abroad. Foreigners are investing in the UK. Similarly, if UK residents are buying foreign goods, supply will go up. They'll supply pounds to obtain dollars to buy it. Similarly, if residents are traveling abroad, let's say they're going to the Disney World in the US, they will supply pounds to obtain dollars to undertake that trip. Similarly, if UK investors are purchasing foreign assets, if a UK investor is buying a house in the US, he has to supply pounds to obtain dollars to buy a good, right? Or if a speculator who thinks pound will depreciate, if you're a speculator who believes pound will depreciate in the future, right? What will you do? You will basically be buying a foreign good to do that. So you speculator who thinks pound will depreciate will actually be doing that so that he UK speculator, he will basically, who believe pound will depreciate, will basically be supplying. Do you guys hear me? Because there's some disruption that happened. Okay, sorry, let me explain this number 4 again. So if you're a speculator who thinks pound will depreciate, what will you do is that you will basically be selling your pounds. So you will supply more pounds so that you can sell them before their value falls. And last one, if the UK government wants to buy foreign currency, they have to supply pounds. So they supply pounds to buy foreign currency. Does that make sense, guys? Any questions? So these are the various factors that is going to happen. Got it? Does that make sense? Any questions, guys? If we purchase, RS is saying if we purchase UK currency to invest or import, if you purchase UK currency to invest or import or for speculation or we for any other reason, this would increase UK pound price. Haris, I don't know what your question is. This is a long question. I don't get it. But basically, these are the various sources. But yes, anytime you're buying foreign goods, anytime you are traveling abroad, anytime these factors are happening, you supply more. When the supply goes up, exchange rate goes down. If that's what you mean, yes. Supply goes up, exchange rate goes down. Demand goes up, exchange rate goes up. Demand goes up, exchange rate goes up. Okay. Okay, that's what we are saying. Okay, this is it for today, guys. I'm going to continue this discussion tomorrow. It's 9:55. I'll see you guys tomorrow, similarly at 9:05. Thank you very much, and God bless you all. Bye.